The docking bay of Terra Station hummed with nervous energy as the sleek Zarian vessel settled into its berth. Captain Marcus Steele stood at attention, his military uniform crisp despite the tension radiating through the space station. Beside him, Dr. Luna Hayes adjusted her medical scanner nervously, her brown eyes reflecting the same uncertainty that filled the air. The airlock hissed open, revealing figures that seemed to glide rather than walk. Leading them was Princess Nyx Zorathea, her pale blue skin shimmering under the station's lights. Her silver hair flowed like liquid mercury, and her violet eyes held an intelligence that was both captivating and intimidating. She wore ceremonial armor that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. So these are the humans who believe they can stand beside the mighty Zarian Empire. Nyx's voice carried across the bay, melodic yet laced with skepticism. Her gaze swept over the assembled human delegation before settling on Marcus. "Ah, you call? That's strength? Show me." Marcus stepped forward, his jaw set with determination. "Princess Nyx, we welcome you to Terra Station. Humanity may not possess your advanced technology, but we have other qualities that make us valuable allies." Nyx circled him slowly, like a predator evaluating prey. "Other qualities? What could your primitive species possibly offer against the Void Destroyers? Your ships are crude, your weapons basic, your bodies fragile." She stopped directly in front of him, close enough that he could smell the exotic scent of her alien perfume. "I've studied your military records, Captain Steele. Impressive by human standards. Perhaps but utterly inadequate for what's coming." Luna felt her heart skip as she watched the exchange. She had known Marcus since childhood, had seen him face impossible odds before, but this was different. The fate of Earth's alliance hung in the balance. "Then test me," Marcus said quietly, his blue eyes never leaving Nyx's violet ones. "If you're so certain of our weakness, prove it." A smile played at the corners of Nyx's lips, revealing teeth that were slightly sharper than human norm. "Very well, Captain. I propose a series of trials. Combat simulations, endurance tests, strategic challenges. When you fail, as you inevitably will, Earth will acknowledge Zarian supremacy and follow our commands without question." "And when I succeed?" Marcus asked, stepping closer until they were almost touching. Nyx's breath caught slightly at his boldness. No one had ever challenged her so directly, and perhaps there's more to humanity than meets the eye. Her voice dropped to almost a whisper. "But that won't happen." The tension in the docking bay was palpable as the two leaders faced each other, neither backing down. Around them, both human and Zarian personnel watched with fascination and fear. This moment would determine not just the alliance, but the future of both species. The first trial, the combat simulation chamber, materialized around Marcus like a living nightmare. Holographic enemies swarmed from every direction, while environmental hazards shifted the battlefield constantly. Nyx watched from the observation deck, her arms crossed as she waited for the inevitable human failure. "Parameters set to Zarian. Military standards," General Kavath announced, his scarred face showing approval of his princess's strategy. No human has ever survived these conditions. But Marcus had already adapted, using the changing terrain to his advantage, rather than fighting against it. When a chasm opened beneath his feet, he didn't try to leap across. Instead, he rappelled down, using the walls for cover while picking off enemies from an unexpected angle. Luna monitored his vital signs, amazed by his calm focus despite the overwhelming odds. "Clever," Nyx murmured, leaning forward as Marcus improvised weapons from debris. Where Zarian warriors relied on superior technology and physical prowess, Marcus used cunning and adaptability. He turned enemy attacks against each other, created diversions with environmental hazards, and somehow maintained tactical awareness despite the chaos. 20 minutes into the simulation, something unprecedented happened. Marcus wasn't just surviving, he was winning. His unconventional strategies confused the AI enemies programmed for traditional Zarian combat styles. When he finally stood alone among the defeated holograms, the chamber fell silent. Nyx descended to the simulation floor, her expression unreadable. Marcus stood breathing heavily, sweat glistening on his skin, but his eyes held quiet triumph. "How?" she asked, genuinely curious now rather than dismissive. We don't have your strength or technology, Marcus replied, wiping blood from a minor cut. So we learned to be creative, to adapt, to find solutions others wouldn't consider. As she approached him, Nyx felt something unexpected stirring in her chest. His determination fascinated her, but more than that, his refusal to be intimidated, despite her obvious advantages, spoke to something deeper. When she reached out to examine his injury, her skin touched for the first time. The contact sent electricity through both of them. Marcus's warm human skin contrasted sharply with her cooler Zarian physiology, yet somehow they seemed to complement each other perfectly. Nyx pulled her hand back quickly, but not before Marcus noticed the slight tremor in her fingers. The next trial will be more difficult, she said, trying to regain her composure. I'm counting on it, Marcus replied, his smile causing her heart to race in ways that had nothing to do with combat stress. Luna watched the exchange from the observation deck with growing concern. She recognized the signs of attraction in both of them, but she also knew the political implications. A human-Zarian romance could either unite their species or destroy any hope of alliance. As they prepared for the second trial, neither Marcus nor Nyx could deny the growing connection between them. Even as duty and tradition demanded, they remained focused on their respective missions. The klaxons shrieked through Terra Station as unidentified ships dropped out of hyperspace. The Void Pirates had found them, their black vessels bristling with weapons that could tear the station apart. Marcus rushed to the command center while Nyx coordinated with her own forces, their trials forgotten in the face of real danger. Shields at 60% and falling, Luna reported from her station. Her medical training temporarily set aside for emergency duty. Their quantum disruptors are overwhelming our defenses. Marcus studied the tactical display, his mind racing. The pirate fleet outnumbered them 3-1, and their technology was stolen from a dozen different civilizations. We need to evacuate the civilian sections, he ordered, but even as he spoke, he knew they didn't have enough time. Nyx appeared beside him, her royal composure cracking as she watched the tactical situation deteriorate. Our weapons are designed for their ships, she said urgently, but we can't target them without risking the station's hull integrity. That's when Marcus sought a solution so dangerous that it bordered on insanity. What if we don't fight them? Ship to ship, he turned to Nyx, his eyes bright with desperate inspiration. What if we let them board us? That's suicide, General Kavath protested, but Marcus was already explaining his plan. They want to capture the station intact for its strategic value. We use that against them. Channel them into specific corridors, create choke points, force them to fight on our terms. As the first pirate boarding pods attached to the hull, Marcus grabbed a pulse rifle and headed for the airlock. Nyx caught his arm, her grip surprisingly strong. You'll be killed, she said, and he heard genuine fear in her voice. Maybe, Marcus replied, covering her hand with his. But if I don't try, we all die anyway. The boarding action was brutal and chaotic. Pirates poured through the corridors while human and Zarian forces fought side by side for the first time. Marcus led from the front, his tactical brilliance turning every corner into a trap, every junction into a killing field. But when a pirate captain broke through their lines, heading straight for Nyx with a plasma sword raised, Marcus didn't hesitate. He threw himself between them, taking the energy blade across his chest. The burn was agonizing, but it gave Nyx the opening she needed to eliminate the threat. As Marcus collapsed, bleeding and barely conscious, she caught him in her arms. Why? She whispered, her violet eyes filled with tears. Why risk your life? For me? Marcus looked up at her, his vision blurring, but his voice steady. Because that's what humans do. Protect the people we care about, even if it kills us. In that moment, everything changed for Nyx. She finally understood that human strength wasn't about physical power or advanced technology. It was about the courage to sacrifice everything for others. The willingness to stand against impossible odds when doing the right thing demanded it. As Luna rushed to treat Marcus's wounds, Nyx held his hand and made a silent vow. Whatever it took, she would ensure the alliance between their peoples succeeded. The connection 3 days later, Marcus woke in the medical bay to find Nyx sitting beside his bed. Her usual regal composure had been replaced by something softer, more vulnerable. Alicia had been there for hours, Luna told him later, refusing to leave even for meals. The pirates? Marcus asked, his voice rough from the breathing treatments. Defeated, Nyx replied, adjusting the thermal blanket around his shoulders with surprising gentleness. Your strategy worked perfectly. The Alliance Council has approved full military cooperation between our species. As he recovered, Nyx visited daily. Their conversations began with tactical debriefings, but gradually became more personal. Itchy told him about growing up on Zarian, the pressure of royal expectations, her fear that she would never find someone who saw beyond her title. Marcus shared his own struggles, the burden of command, the loneliness of always being responsible for others' lives. On Zarian, showing weakness is considered shameful, Nyx confided one evening as they walked through the station's observation deck. The stars stretched endlessly beyond the transparent aluminum, a reminder of how vast and lonely the universe could be. But with you, I don't feel weak when I show my true feelings. Marcus stopped walking and turned to face her. The soft starlight made her alien features seem ethereal, otherworldly beautiful. You're the strongest person I've ever met, he said softly. Strong enough to admit when you're wrong, brave enough to change your mind, wise enough to see beyond species differences. When she stepped closer, he could see his reflection in her violet eyes. Marcus, what's happening between us sits, forbidden by both our cultures, a human and a Zarian princess. ... I know, he whispered, his hand finding hers, their fingers intertwined despite the difference in skin tone and temperature. But I can't stop thinking about you. When I was injured, when I thought I might die, the only thing I regretted was not telling you how I felt. Nyx's breath caught as he lifted his free hand to touch her cheek. How do you feel? She asked, though she already knew the answer from the way his heart rate accelerated whenever she was near. I love you, Marcus said simply. I love your intelligence, your strength, your passion for protecting your people. I love the way you challenged me to be better than I thought possible. Instead of answering with words, Nyx kissed him. There. Lips met with surprising tenderness, a perfect fusion of human warmth and Zarian grace. When they finally separated, both were breathing hard. I love you too, she whispered against his lips. But our people will have to accept it, Marcus finished firmly. If we can build an alliance between our species, we can build a life together. That night, they held each other close, sharing stories of their worlds and dreams of their future, knowing that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. The Void Destroyer fleet emerged from dark space like a plague of locusts, their massive ships blotting out the stars. The combined human-Zarian task force waited in formation, but even with their new alliance, they were outnumbered 10-1. In the command ship's war room, Marcus and Nyx stood side by side, their love now an open secret that had somehow brought their crews closer together instead of dividing them. Their quantum shielding is impenetrable to our weapons, General Kavith reported grimly. And their dark matter cannons can shatter our hulls with a single shot. But Marcus was studying the enemy formations with the same innovative thinking that had won Nyx's respect. What if we're approaching this wrong? We keep trying to fight them like they're a conventional enemy, but they're not. They're a hive. Mind dependent on their central command ship.
Ace.
Nyx followed his reasoning immediately.
Ace.
If we could disrupt their coordination, create chaos in their ranks. Her eyes lit up with possibility. The human concept of divide and conquer. Exactly. But it would require someone to get inside their command ship. A suicide mission. Luna, monitoring communications from her station, looked up sharply. Not suicide if we work together. Human adaptability combined with Zarian technology, we could create a chance. The plan they devised was audacious beyond belief. Marcus would lead a strike team into the heart of the enemy fleet, while Nyx coordinated the main battle from their flagship. Their love, which had begun as a challenge, and grown through shared danger, now became their greatest tactical advantage. They could anticipate each other's moves, communicate with glances across the bridge, fight as one mind and two bodies. As the battle raged around them, Marcus's team fought their way through the destroyer command ship. Every corridor was a battlefield. Every junction, a potential death trap. But the Void creatures had never faced human determination backed by Zarian technology. When Marcus finally reached the central core, he found something unexpected. Not just a computer, but a living entity, ancient and filled with pain. "It's not evil," he reported to Nyx through their quantum link. "It's dying." These attacks, their desperate attempts to find a new home. In that moment, Nyx made a decision that would define both their futures. Instead of ordering the creature's destruction, she opened diplomatic channels. "We offer sanctuary," she broadcast on all frequencies. "A place among the stars where you can live without consuming others." The battle stopped instantly. In the silence that followed, the Void entity's gratitude flooded through every mind in both fleets. The creatures that had seemed like unstoppable monsters were revealed as refugees fleeing the death of their universe. Months later, as Terra Station hosted the signing of the Greater Alliance Treaty, Marcus and Nyx stood together on the observation deck where they had shared their first kiss. 3 species now worked together, turning former enemies into allies through understanding rather than force. "You were right from the beginning," Nyx said, leaning against his shoulder. "Human strength isn't about physical power, and you taught me that real leadership means being willing to change your mind when presented with new evidence." Marcus replied, kissing the top of her silver hair. Their wedding, celebrated according to traditions from all 3 species, became a symbol of hope across the galaxy. Love, they had proven, was indeed the strongest force in the universe, strong enough to unite enemies, bridge species, and transform the cosmos itself. Now, as they danced under the light of distant stars, surrounded by humans, Zarians, and their new Void allies, Marcus and Nyx knew their story was just beginning. Together, they would explore the galaxy, spreading the message that strength comes not from conquest, but from the courage to love across any divide.